want to apologize in advance with my title here if throughout the day you have walking in Winterland stuck in your head. But today we're going to be talking about roofing in Winter Wonderland, aka Canada, more specifically Ontario and British Columbia, where we have our respective offices. So some of the things that we're going to be talking about today are the varying roof systems that we encounter, some of the problems that can arise in winter, how to prepare your roof, working throughout the winter, some specialty projects and services that we offer, and at the end of everything, we will be doing a Q&A period. So throughout the presentation, if you happen to have any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat, and we will get around to everything at the end. If there's not something you have until the very end, it will be open forum, so please feel free to ask away. And if anybody that stays on till the end, we will also be doing a draw for a $100 Amazon gift card, which Kim has there. So let's get started. So first of all, we're going to talk about some of the types of roof systems. Anyone who is familiar with detail or design roofing knows that we are big fans of Styrene, Butadiene, Styrene, aka 2-ply SBS. So this roof system is commonly found on residential flat roofs, commercial plazas, warehouse facilities. It is the roof system that we recommend among all others. It's something that can only be installed on a flat roof. So if it was a sloped surface, you would not be able to install this type of roof system. But yes, it offers the longest lifespan if maintained properly throughout the system's lifespan. And offers a large amount of redundancy, which is really important, not only because every building experiences some movement and shifting over the years, but also with the weather fluctuations that we get with all the varying seasons that we have here. So with the 2-ply SBS system, you have your roof deck followed by insulation, an overlay board, and then the actual membrane itself, the first ply base sheet, and second ply cap sheet, which is a granulated UV resistant surface. So again, we want to stress that this can be the longest lasting lifespan of a roof system if installed correctly. We've seen a number of times in both provinces where people have SBS roof systems failing from anywhere between 5 to 10 years after it's installed. That's not a knock against the membrane itself. It just means that it wasn't installed properly. One of the things that we come across often is issues with the stripping. So that's the upturn here. When done correctly, this will actually create 4 plies along the upturn, which again offers a large amount of durability and redundancy in the roof system. So next we have built-up roofing, aka tar and gravel. So this used to be a very good system. However, over the years, some of the materials, the components have changed up a bit, and it's not the same as it was, 20, 30 years ago. So 2-ply SBS has kind of taken the place of the tar and gravel roof system. However, we still do commonly see them on older commercial facilities or older condominiums and apartments. If there are any issues with this type of membrane, it would be repaired with a 2-ply SBS because that is compatible to tie into the system. Some of the issues are if it begins to fail, it's going to fail quickly. It's not going to, happen over years and years. You can get one split that overnight is going to turn into a split that goes down 50 feet across the roof surface. So this is a system we see very commonly on residential condos and commercial facilities. It's called an inverted or upside down roof system. Now this isn't a description of the actual membrane itself, but the system. So over top of the roof deck, the membrane can vary. A lot of what we see is it's a liquid rubber or liquid tar membrane. It's honestly just a goop that's applied. We have also seen single ply membranes in some cases, and very good roof systems will have the 2-ply SBS as the membrane layer. So over top of the membrane layer, you have your insulation, This can range anywhere from 1 to 4 inches or more. On top of that, you have a filter cloth or filter fabric, and then the insulation. Or sorry, not the insulation, the gravel ballast or paving stones, depending on your building. So these layers do add some added protection. You do have to ensure that the filter cloth and insulation don't become exposed just because they are not UV resistant, and the sun over time can damage that and cause some issues to the membrane. If you have a liquid tar or liquid rubber membrane, an inverted system is required, just because, again, that also does not offer any UV protection. One of the downsides about this roof system is that if there are any issues with the membrane, if you have a leak or just curious about what the state of it is, it can be really time consuming to properly investigate it, just because you have all these layers that have to be removed, which can take quite a bit of time. So, you know, in this case, we had opened the roof system up to take a look at a leak, but if we needed to expand the search, then it's just opening up more and more and more. So next we're going to get into some of the single plies. First we have EPDM membrane. This is common on residential flat roofs, commercial plazas, and warehouse facilities. I'd say more often than not the warehouse facilities. This type of membrane is very easy and very cheap to install. So it's very appealing to a lot of people just because the upfront cost is low. You know, to install it, it's just rolled out, glued on. The issue is that it's very thin. It's equivalent to, you know, the rubber on your bike tire. So it's very easily punctured by different trades, wildlife, foreign objects. It also creates a lot of issues if there's a leak, because it can just be a small pinhole leak that enters through the roof system and then can travel on the deck below. A similar system is the TPO, another single ply. However, this is a more reinforced. It's a little bit thicker. However, it still is pretty easily punctured. We see it in a lot of the same places. However, it's also quite common on condo canopies over the front entrance, or if there's any commercial shops below, we've seen that quite often. The issue in those locations especially is having all of the balconies above. And, you know, I'm sure no matter how many times you tell residents not to throw stuff off their balconies, they still do it anyways. And especially when you have things like cigarettes being thrown off the balcony and landing on this type of roof system, it just burns a hole straight through, which can of course create a leak. If it's over the entrance to your building during winter, that can absolutely create ice buildup and present a massive hazard for your residents and just pedestrians walking down the street. Similarly to the inverted or upside down roof system, green roofs, they have a number of different layers, and the membrane layer is something that can vary. It's also by far the most important layer of the roofing system. So these ones are commonly found on condominium towers, government buildings, hotels. As you can see here, we have a few layers, including the insulation before the waterproofing membrane. So again, this is something where we would recommend something durable and long-standing, like a 2-ply SBS membrane, because if you have the single ply, there still can be punctures or issues that can occur. And then you have all of these layers on top, the protection mat, drainage layer, filter cloth, and then the actual greenery itself. So as you can see, if you need to get down to the membrane layer, there's a lot that needs to be removed. In these cases, we would recommend having a landscaper come in if we did need to do any sort of excavation, not while we were removing it itself, but just after everything's put back in place, just to ensure that it's put back properly and functioning as intended as a green roof system. Metal roofs we don't see as commonly on the residential side. It's typically more with commercial warehouse facilities. We do sometimes see them though on front canopy roofs. These roof systems are one of the best. They can last up to 50 years if maintained, and the maintenance isn't even very extensive. It's pretty minimal maintenance. However, it is quite expensive to install. That's why you don't see it as often. So some of the issues that can arise throughout the lifespan of a building in general, there is going to be some small movement structural shifts. That's normal, there's no avoiding it. However, when you pair that with the temperature fluctuations that we experience here in Canada, it can create a lot of distress to your membrane and your roof system. You know, one week you have it -30, the next week is +10. That back and forth can create a lot of issues with the roof. So a lot of splits and cracks are very common in the winter. And you just want to make sure that your membrane is in good condition heading in. Snow and ice buildup on roofs is also something that we see very commonly and can create quite a strain on the roof system depending on the amount and how long it's left. Once that snow melts, it can create excess ponding throughout the roof surface or flooding, which then can lead to leaks. It's not the only thing that can lead to leaks, but it definitely is a contributing factor. And then finally, ice damming is a really common issue that we see throughout the winter seasons, especially in Ontario. So just some photos of some of the common issues there, especially with the splits and cracks and openings that can occur in the membrane with the temperature fluctuation. But again, visualizing this, just imagine that this is your roof system and all the snow melts and you have this excessive ponding throughout, but then you have splits and cracks and openings in your membrane. That's just creating a path for this water to get into and create interior leaks, which is going to be costly to repair and can create various health issues. So again, ice damming is something that we see very commonly. So that can be ice and snow buildup in the gutters themselves, or it can be the ice actually forming down the side of the building. A lot of the times this is due to attic ventilation and inadequate attic ventilation. So the heat from the attic melting the snow on the roof and then getting to the end and freezing, and that back and forth can create the ice buildup along. And we have another trusty little diagram here just to go into that a little more in depth. I know that these photos might not seem very different, but slight or small differences in the attic can make a major difference. So on this side with a well-ventilated attic, we have air entering through the soffit. It's clear of any insulation. It goes up and out through the roof vents. Interior connections from bathrooms or kitchen from the fans are blowing right out of the exterior of the building. So in a faulty attic, that could mean that the connections are not exiting the building and they're just blowing right into the attic space. The insulation could be blocking the softening, which isn't allowing airflow into the building. In some cases, it could be everything is connected properly, but there aren't enough AF50 vents letting the air out of the roof for the amount of space. So this can create ice damming, which can be, a massive hazard for people walking below. And then it can also create condensation, which can lead to mold in the attic space, and then can also create interior leaks into the homes. So preparing your roof for winter. The best way to prepare your roof for winter is through inspections and maintenance. I know we got quite a bit of snow this past week, but even now, as we have some melting, it's not too late to prepare your roof for winter now. So some of the issues that we run into very often through all seasons, we have the drains blocked by debris and vegetation. Believe it or not, under this tree here is a drain. So already on its own, that's going to create some issues. But if you have freezing ice and snow built up around that, then it's just going to create more blockages. The water's not going to drain as intended. And then once that all starts to melt, it can create some serious backup. We also have some exposed penetrations here. So again, if the roof is going to pond excessively or flood because the drains are blocked and you have open penetrations like these ones, or you just have snow sitting built up around this, it's very likely to create a leak issue. On this 2-ply SBS roof down here, we have an overflow scupper drain. So already some of the seams of the membrane aren't in great shape. They're starting to split a little bit. So with the temperature fluctuations that we experience, that can just split even more, again, creating an opening for water, ice, snow. So just another look at the drain inspections, again, just ensuring that they're clear from any vegetation, debris, gravel, anything that's going to block them up. This is something that we recommend throughout the entire year, but especially in the winter when you have so much ice and snow sitting around the drains. Penetrations are another big one. So in this case here, we have a high dome at the base of a plumbing stack on an inverted roof system. So this base down here, you wouldn't be able to see unless you removed that gravel insulation and filter cloth. However, what we like to include in our maintenance inspections is either in phases or depending on how many are up there, if we can do all of them at once, is just checking the bases and ensuring there isn't any type of damage like this and sealing them properly or replacing them if required. Down here we have pitch pockets or gum pans. The actual hardware itself can last a long time, but if the sealant is not kept up with, it can create openings like there are here, which just allows water to get in and create a leak. And then below that, we have on an SBS roof a B-vent penetration that's not properly sealed, and you actually have some rusting occurring here. So again, snow and ice buildup sitting around all of these things can create leak issues, which you want to avoid by getting your roof prepared for winter. This is actually something we ran into within the last few weeks here. Some snow was sitting on top of a parapet wall metal flashing, and because of the fact that the sealant at the seams was really deteriorated, it was sitting on top and getting in. And clearly rainwater had been getting in for quite a while because the wood beneath the metal flashing there was completely rotted through. In this case, there was an existing waterproofing membrane. However, it was finding a way to get in somewhere. So we had to remove all of this, replace the plywood, install some new waterproofing membrane, and then reinstall the metal and apply new caulking to seal the metal flashing seams. So again, with the metal roofs, pretty minimal as far as upkeep and maintenance goes. There are a lot of fasteners and seams throughout. So the biggest thing is just ensuring that the seams are sealed over time and that any rusted fasteners are changed out just to avoid any leak issues from those openings. So working in the winter, I find a lot of people, they just assume that roofing companies aren't open in the winter or that you can't roof in the winter. And that's because a lot of the companies out there, they are seasonal. So if you're asking them about certain services, they might tell you that things can't be done in the winter or that they're not able to because they're not operating. The thing is that we can't predict what the weather is going to be like. So, you have some days that are quite mild or quite cold, and sometimes the winter season in general is mild throughout or otherwise. A perfect example is this last January where we saw 131 millimeters of rain in Toronto, which, as you can see from this graph here, not only was it the highest on record for January, but it was the highest rainfall of the year by a long shot. So when we're working throughout the winter, in all seasons really, but especially in the winter, we keep a very close eye on the weather in consideration of the various projects we have going on. If there is ever a time when you want to know what the weather is going to be like and you don't feel like checking it out, ask anybody at Detail and Design Roofing, because we can tell you what the weather is like today, tomorrow, next week, the long range for the 14 days out, and in all different regions, because we have to keep a close eye on it to consider all the jobs we're running. Every product that we use, all the different materials, they also come with technical data sheets. So these sheets are guidelines for the storage of the product. Some of them have to be kept cooler or not in direct sunlight, whatever, the shelf life, and the application minimum and maximum temperatures. So that's very important and something that we follow, especially for our maintenance scopes where we have a lot of various products that we're using, and especially a lot of liquids. We do have a number of tools that we can use to be able to use these throughout the winter. So we have warming bags in events that there is any active snowfall. We do have tents that we can set up over smaller areas if it is a localized area that's being worked on. One thing that we do ask is that our customers have a bit more flexibility throughout the winter months, just because the weather can be a little unpredictable. Although we're watching it very closely, there might be some more rescheduling required if there is a major weather event. So just taking a look at some of our standard services, what that would look like in the winter. Any membrane repairs where we're doing a 2-ply SBS can be carried out at any time. So as you can see here, when we arrive on the roof, there is some snow built up. Just sweep that out of the way, clean and dry the area, and then we're able to install the new 2-ply SBS membrane, which is torch applied. So as far as the weather and temperature, it's not really a factor in this case. If it was a single-ply membrane, the temperature is something that we would have to keep in mind if we were doing any repairs, just because it can't be too cold to be installing that. Oh, sorry. With roof maintenance, again, you see some examples here of roof maintenance being carried out in the winter. Unless there is a leak that we have investigated, or part of the original assessment was exposing the membrane on an inverted roof system to see anything that was going on. A lot of our maintenance items are things that can be seen visually throughout the roof system without having to remove any of the gravel or insulation, which means that even if there is snow built up throughout the roofs, it is easy to identify the areas that are part of our scope. We also have our guys, if anybody's familiar with our project summary reports, I'm sure you've seen the aerial view of the buildings that we have at the end, and our guys always mark specific locations down so that they know exactly where they need to go when they go back to be able to find these areas and do whatever repairs or maintenance are required. Leak investigations, again, there's sometimes where we get more leaks in the winter than in other months, just because the constant snow and the melting, and then, unseasonable January months where you get a month full of rain. So again, leak investigations, we hear it all the time where people say it's the spring or the summer and they have a resident that's reported a leak and they say, well, this has been happening since last winter. Do not wait to report a leak. Even if it's the winter, we can come out and investigate it. We take a look at the roof, remove the snow from the area. If there is ever a condition where it is unsafe, of course, we would not put our technicians in that situation, and we may need to reschedule. But as long as it's safe to access, then we can be there 24/7. So some of the specialty projects and services that we can look at in the winter, ice and snow removal. So again, if you have a roof surface where there's a lot of snow built up and you just want it removed because you don't want that additional strain or potential for the melt that can occur after, we can absolutely come out to remove it from the roof surface. Or with icicles, we can have those removed as well. Whether or not an ice damming solution is something that you want to look into, icicles built up like this can create such a massive hazard that you want to get those removed as soon as possible so it's not going to fall and potentially injure somebody. With the ice damming solutions, we have a few different options here. So in these top photos, we have a heat trace cable, which we've installed in the actual gutter itself and then along the edge of the roof. Now, the heat trace cables that we install, it's not something that you can just go pick up from a hardware store and plug in. It is heavy duty We generally would need an electrician in conjunction, which the corporation would be responsible for contracting, just to make sure that it is properly plugged in and functioning, but we would do the actual installation of the wire itself. Attic inspections are also something that we do as an ice damming solution. So in this case, we've done the attic inspection just to ensure that all of the insulation, pipe connections are functioning as intended. We can install baffles, which is this guy here, just to create some additional airflow. And then in some cases, we may need to install some additional vents to create some more ventilation into the attic space. Downpipe relocation is another one that we see quite often. Some of the downpipes that are currently installed are ending right at a point that's a really high traffic area, and once the water comes out and freezes in the winter, it creates a massive slip hazard for residents. So redirecting that to a location where it's not going to present a hazard is absolutely something that we can do. In this case here, actually, we had it was coming down the side here, so we had to wrap it all the way down and around the fence, just so that it wouldn't be where anybody was walking. Drainage solutions. So a few different things here. One of the things that we can do is, if there is a lot of snow and ice built up, is creating a path just for the water and the snow to drain properly into the drain. Once everything has melted, if there is excessive ponding happening and you're concerned about it, or if it is creating a leak issue, all of our technicians are equipped with these pumps. So we can absolutely come out to pump the water off of the roof, sweep the excess into the drains, just to make sure that that's not going to be creating any roof issues or potential leak issues. Bird deterrent system. So this isn't something that can strictly be done in the winter, but just to let everyone know that this is something that we do and the service that we can offer. So bird spikes are very common. There's a few examples of these installed here. However, there's also the option that would be best for your building would really depend on the type of building and the type of bird that is an issue. So there's the spikes, there's netting, there is the sonar systems, balloons, a number of different options. So if you are having any issues, it's something that we can definitely look into during all times of the year. Floor sealing is another thing that we can look into during all months of the year. We wouldn't recommend doing an exterior concrete ceiling on a balcony or exterior parkade, just because several days are required for the membrane application and cure times. But we can look into interior parking garages, mechanical rooms, garbage rooms, cooling towers, basically anything inside that is that you have concrete that has some cracking, or if it has an existing epoxy membrane that's deteriorating and causing some issues, we can look into resealing that with a liquid membrane traffic system. And just so everyone is aware, I have all of the contact information here for both our Ontario and BC offices. Our service emails are best utilized for any roof assessment requirements you may have, or if you just want some information about a potential job. If you do have an emergency situation or just a leak in general, some people think that they have a leak and they say it's not an emergency because it's not active, so we don't need to email emergency service. That's just, it's an internal terminology. So anything that is leak related or service call related would go to the emergency service email. And then our phone numbers are also where you would get our 24/7 on-call representative. And now we can take some questions.
Great, Kelly. Yeah, does anybody have any questions? You can either unmute yourself or you can add it to the chat, whatever's the best.
Hi, Kelly. It's Dean McCabe here from Meredith Group. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. A couple of questions. First of all, wanted to get an idea. One of the things that attracted us to come to today's webinar is I think your roofing inspections and the reports you give are great. Wanted to get an idea for a couple of the managers that are around the table here. There's a few of us that came in to watch together, and get an idea of what the cost of a roof report and inspection is. That's question number one. Number two, a little bit of information on your availability and maintenance for shingled roofs. I think really the only main references I heard to shingled roofing today was really when you talked about ice damming, and those are bad words for us. We don't like to say them. So, so I'd like to know a little bit about your maintenance and availability for maintenance and repairs on shingled roofs as well in the winter, especially in the winter. And lastly, I'm wondering if you can speak, I'll get all of these out all at once. One of the things we're seeing a lot more these days, and as the type of construction, especially in the Toronto area, with townhouses and stacked townhouses, is these leveled roofs. I'd like to know a little bit about Duradeck and whether or not you guys do either installation or repairs of Duradeck roofing membranes with scuppers. So can you maybe touch on those three? And I think that will be at least all of my questions for now. I've got them all out at once. So.
Okay. So for starters, as far as the assessments go, our overall roof inspections, typically those are done at no charge to the corporation. There are some cases where a charge might apply. However, it is very rare. What I would recommend is speaking to your account manager just to determine what would be required for your overall roof assessment. Next, as far as shingle roofing goes, that is also something that we can do throughout the year. However, because of the slope and considering what the slope is on the roof, it is something where we would have to keep a close eye on the weather. So if there was any ice or snow buildup, then it's something that we wouldn't be able to do right away and would have to wait for a drier period. But we can still complete maintenance throughout the year on shingled roofs. Typically, what we would be looking out for, aside from any shingle damage, would be rust proofing of the vents and stacks throughout the roof, caulking renewal if there is any metal flashing, if not at any fastener penetrations at the vents or plumbing stacks throughout. Any issues with metal fascia, gutters, downpipes are just a few of the common issues that we run into on sloped shingled roofs. As far as Duradeck, Kim, I'm gonna let you take that one.
I think Kim knew you were going to give her that question. She ran away.
Oh.
There we go.
Oh, there she is.
I lost my connection there. Sorry. I'm back. Sorry, what was the question you need about me?
Duradeck membrane.
Oh yes. So I wouldn't recommend Duradeck membrane. It's a single ply. Sorry, I hate to say it.
No, unfortunately, I appreciate you wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend it either. The problem is we maintain a lot of properties that have it.
Yes.
Contractors find they can get it, they get it cheap and they throw it on. And, after that they go, well, it's not our problem. It's management's. So unfortunately, while I understand we wouldn't recommend it, it's a great system for Arizona, just not so much for here. But we don't live in Arizona, so we do need to have some either not only maintenance plans, but also contractors available to work on it when we do have a problem. So that's really what I was looking for, is a resource for us to go to when we do have Duradeck issues.
Oh yeah, well, we can definitely repair it. Absolutely. We have a few different products that can repair it, but we see it actually a fair amount. So in both BC and Ontario. So we can definitely help you out and go out. It's fairly easy to puncture. So maintenance, we can set up a maintenance plan or be reactive, depending on those leaks. We'll go whatever the condo corp wants, but yeah, we can for sure repair that.
Okay, thanks.
Good questions. Anybody else have any questions? Oh, I think we have one in the chat here. Let's see. Can you tell me more about metal roof maintenance? What would be included in this? Do you want me to take this one, Kelly?
Sure.
So metal roofs, as Kelly mentioned, are great roof systems. It's going to depend if it's an exposed fastener or a hidden fastener. And what all that is whether you can see the fasteners or not. The older styles most of the time are exposed. And what would be a general maintenance item is replacing those fasteners. So you might have a roof that has 100,000 fasteners on it. So some of the buildings we have that we say we do 20,000 a year, just to get them going, because the problem is the gasket on the screw. It is what wears down, and then water can get in through that. So that would be one thing. The other thing is rust. They will eventually rust. So we can do different coatings. Actually, on one of the buildings that our business is in, we redid the metal roof with a OC 2000, a roof coating, and it looks brand new. I think it's going to last another 20 years. So that's something. The penetrations are really important on metal roofs just to ensure they're sealed. Those would kind of be the main three things on a metal roof. But we can definitely take a look. Yeah, good question. Anybody have anything else? Well, thank you everybody for coming on.
Thank you so much for joining, everyone.